Today we will tell you about a case that became a true sensation in its time. The FBI, police, SWAT, and other law enforcement agencies faced a mystery unlike any other. At the heart of this enigma was an object that defied simple description. On the outside, it appeared crude, almost primitive, but inside, it was meticulously designed down to the smallest detail. The investigation raised countless questions. What was this object? Why was it created? And who was behind it? The answers took years to uncover, and this case went down in history as one of the most expensive in the United States. Curiously, there's even a connection to a Soviet prison in this story, but let's start from the beginning. The story began in the small town of Stateline, Nevada. The population of this town barely reached 600 people. Nevada is the most gambling-centric state in America, home to Las Vegas, the world's gambling capital. Stateline could be called a miniature Las Vegas. This resort town sprawled along the shores of the picturesque Lake Tahoe. Despite its modest area of 3 square kilometers, it housed 4 casinos: Bally's Lake Tahoe, Golden Nugget Lake Tahoe, Harrah's Lake Tahoe, and Harveys Lake Tahoe. Our story is tied to the last one. On the 26th of August, 1980, around 5:30 in the morning, the senior administrator of Harveys, then called Harveys Resort, realized he had run out of cigarettes. He decided to head down from his second-floor office to the first-floor shop to buy a pack. As he passed the corridor near the telephone switchboard room, the man noticed something odd. The door to that room, usually locked, was slightly ajar. Peering inside, he froze in astonishment. Before him stood a contraption that was hard to describe briefly. It consisted of 2 metal boxes. The larger one, about 60 centimeters wide, 1 meter long, and 70 centimeters tall, served as the base. On top sat a smaller box, roughly 35 centimeters wide, 55 centimeters long, and 35 centimeters tall. The structure rested on metal supports with wooden wedges placed underneath. Judging by the dented orange carpet, the object's weight was considerable. The administrator's surprise grew, as just 20 minutes earlier, he had been in this room and seen nothing like it. Wasting no time, he went to fetch security. To reach the first floor, he had to pass through another door. But as he grabbed the handle, his palm felt sticky. The door was locked. He had a key, but someone had filled the lock with glue and stuffed matches into it. He had to take the stairs. The head of security, upon inspecting the find, immediately called the police and fire department. The arriving officers found an envelope in the room labeled, "To the administration of Harveys Casino." Inside were 3 pages of text. Reading them, everyone understood what they were dealing with. It was a bomb. The envelope contained a stern warning. Do not move or tilt the bomb. The mechanism controlling the detonators will trigger with movement less than 1 unit on the Richter scale. Do not attempt to flood the bomb or fill it with gas. There is a float switch and atmospheric pressure relay connected to the detonators inside. Do not try to disassemble it. The screws are linked to trigger mechanisms. Turning a screw a quarter of a turn will cause an explosion. This bomb is so sensitive that any movement will lead to detonation. It cannot be disarmed without special instructions. Only by following our instructions can you move the bomb to a safe location for a controlled explosion. The bomb has 3 timers set to different intervals. Follow the instructions in the letter to disable 2 timers and move the bomb. We repeat, do not attempt to disarm it will explode. There is enough TNT inside to severely damage even the neighboring Harrah's Hotel. Cordon off an area within a 350-meter radius and evacuate everyone. Demand: $3 million in old $100 bills, unmarked, without stickers or chemical treatment. If the money is not as specified, the instructions for moving the bomb will be voided. The letter went on to describe how and where to deliver the ransom, but more on that later. The shadow of a threat over Stateline. Such threats were not uncommon in Stateline. Casinos often received calls demanding ransoms. Usually these were empty boxes or bags, or at worst a bundle of wires. All such threats turned out to be bluffs, attempts to extort money. But this contraption was striking in its complexity. Even experienced bomb technicians had never seen anything like it. "We often got ransom threats," recalled one policeman. "Sometimes we found small bombs, but this one, I couldn't imagine something so massive and sophisticated even in a nightmare. The structure consisted of 2 steel boxes. The lower, larger one was welded shut, its walls and lid permanently sealed. The smaller upper box was fastened with screws and welded to the lower one. The entire structure was painted gray. If a bomb could be admired, this one would certainly deserve praise. What added to the mystery were the 28 toggle switches on the upper box. All of them, except one, number 23, were in the down position. No one knew what this meant, but it was already clear. This was the largest homemade bomb in U.S. history. Harveys was both a casino and a hotel, housing many people. Evacuation began immediately. By 8 in the morning, the hotel was empty. Only professionals remained, FBI agents, bomb technicians, and local police. A question arose. If everyone was evacuated, who was the hostage? The answer was simple: the building itself. The hotel, with its equipment and furnishings, was valued at $30 million. An explosion would destroy everything. Paying $3 million seemed logical to save the building, but the FBI still doubted whether it was a decoy. Technicians tried listening to the bomb with a stethoscope. The noise from air conditioners and music in the building interfered, but soon they picked up an intermittent buzzing sound. Something was happening inside. The first steps of the investigation. The FBI checked the boxes for fingerprints, scraped off paint for analysis, and measured radiation with a Geiger counter. They found nothing. Then they decided to X-ray the boxes. The lower box was too large, so they scanned it in parts. The images showed dense contents but revealed no details. Experts estimated there was at least 400 kilograms of dynamite inside. Later, it turned out their estimate was close. The lower box contained 450 kilograms of explosives. The upper box was less dense. X-rays showed wires running from the toggle switches and other components. This convinced the FBI they were dealing with a real bomb of immense destructive power. Its key feature was its impossibility to disarm. The creator had thought of everything filmy streaming on a television screen. The screws on the upper box were spring-loaded. Attempting to unscrew them would complete a circuit and trigger an explosion. A float sensor would react to flooding with foam or concrete. A pressure sensor would activate if the internal atmosphere changed. The box's walls consisted of 3 layers: steel, rubber, and aluminum foil. Drilling would disrupt the insulation, closing the circuit. Attempting to separate the boxes with a crowbar would have the same effect, but the most ingenious was the pendulum mechanism. The bomb stood on adjustable legs, perfectly leveled. The slightest movement of the pendulum during relocation would trigger detonation. Realizing the bomb couldn't be disarmed, the FBI turned to the casino's owner, Harvey Gross. Would he pay the ransom? His answer was firm. Those scoundrels won't get a cent from me. Harvey Gross's stubbornness. Harvey Gross was a man of principles. His stubbornness and persistence had made him wealthy. His gambling business began in 1944 with a small 2-story building. It housed 7 slot machines, a blackjack table, and a dining room for 12 people. This brought modest income, but it suited Gross. Everything changed when Bill Harrah built a casino across the street. A fierce rivalry began between them. Gross invested all his money and took a loan to build a high-rise hotel casino with 200 rooms. His goal was not just profit, but to outshine his competitor. Harrah responded by building an equally lavish casino. This rivalry consumed Gross. In 1978, Harrah died, and the competition ended. Gross realized his casino had become the best in the area, and he was a very wealthy man. People like him were hard to manipulate. In the bomb situation, he was willing to lose a $30 million building rather than give in to an extortionist. Nevertheless, the FBI convinced Gross to allocate $5,000 for an operation to catch the criminal. The remaining $2,995,000 were counterfeit. Agents cut paper to the size of $100 bills, placing real notes on the top and bottom of the stacks. According to the letter, the money was to be delivered by helicopter. The pilot was to land at 11 in the evening near the Lake Tahoe airport, by a lamppost facing the helicopter east. The pilot had to be alone, unarmed, and wait by the fence gate. Instructions would be delivered via a taxi, and at 12:10 by a payphone. The helicopter had to be fueled. and the pilot ready for 5 landings on unprepared sites. The helicopter took off with Agent Joe Cook at the controls. Inside, hidden, was SWAT Commander Del Rowley to cover Cook and apprehend the extortionist. At the designated spot, Cook waited for instructions. After midnight, the payphone rang. A voice said, "The instructions are under the table in front of you. You have 3 minutes." There was no table. Cook inspected the phone and found an envelope behind it. The letter read, "Open the helicopter door, shine a flashlight inside, ensure no one is nearby. Take off in 3 minutes, follow Highway 50 west, no higher than 500 meters. In 7 kilometers, you'll see a light signal. You have 4 minutes to land, the signal will turn off. Land facing south. In 60 meters, you'll find an envelope with instructions pinned to a tree." Cook flew but saw no signal. He circled, searched, but found nothing. Fuel was running low, and he returned to the airport. The extortionist didn't show up. The next morning, the head of the FBI in Nevada, Joe Yablonsky, appeared on television. The demands had been met, but the extortionists didn't collect the ransom. Later, the FBI received a call. The caller, claiming to be the bomb's creator, said the ransom needed to be delivered again, and in the meantime, to flip toggle switch number 5 up to delay the explosion. Then he hung up. Chaos and desperation. Outside the casino, journalists and onlookers gathered. Neighboring casinos took bets. Would the bomb explode? When and how many would be harmed? People came in t-shirts reading, "I got blown up at Harveys." The bomb technicians refused to touch toggle switch number 5. The extortionist might have lied to trigger the explosion, or it could have been a prankster. The bomb had no visible timer. No one knew how much time was left. At 9:30 in the morning, experts gathered at the command post. Suggestions included freezing the bomb with liquid nitrogen, encasing it in concrete, or moving it to a golf course. All ideas seemed too risky. Gradually, a plan emerged to separate the upper box, the brain of the bomb, from the lower one containing the dynamite. This had to be done in milliseconds to prevent the signal from passing. Someone proposed using a shaped charge. A metal cone with explosives would create a directed blast, severing the upper box. At noon, the experts unanimously approved the plan. The bomb was surrounded with sandbags to minimize damage. From the roof of the neighboring hotel, the FBI remotely detonated their charge. The plan failed. Both bombs exploded. The destruction was immense. In the room where the bomb stood, a 30-meter-wide hole formed. On the floor above, it was 25 meters. Higher up, 15. The void stretched from the 5th floor to the basement. Debris of concrete, drywall, glass, and rebar littered the area. Immediately after the explosion, the FBI formed a task force codenamed Bomb on Wheels. 50 agents from Sacramento and Las Vegas worked in Stateline. A hotline was announced on television for information about the explosion. The desire to catch the extortionist was overwhelming. In the letter, he had threatened another explosion if the ransom wasn't paid. Questioning the staff, the FBI learned that on the morning of the 26th of August, 2 men were seen wheeling a massive object into the casino. Someone recalled a white van in the parking lot, but no one noted the license plate. 2 days after the explosion, Harvey Gross reopened the undamaged part of the casino. Visitors flocked in. In the damaged area, agents worked, and Gross installed a window so guests could watch them like a show. The reward for catching the criminal was $175,000. Gross increased it to $200,000, the largest sum in U.S. history at the time. Tips about suspicious individuals poured in. One call came from Gerald Domenico, the manager of the Balajo Motel near the airport. He reported 2 men in a white van who stayed at his motel the night before the bomb was found. They woke him at 4 in the morning, asking for jumper cables to start their vehicle. One registered as Joey Evets, listing an address, Fresno, California, 4423. The van's license plate was 1A65819. Fresno police found no Joey Evets, and the address was fictitious. On the 17th of September, the FBI released sketches of 2 men, one about 25 years, the other twice as old. 2 weeks later, no one had claimed the reward. The head of the FBI in Nevada said, Usually for $200,000 a person would sell their own mother. If no one has turned them in, it means everyone involved is close, possibly family. The investigation dragged on. The FBI considered hundreds of suspects: the mafia, Iranian students, the Irish Republican Army. Each theory seemed plausible, but evidence was lacking. Agents questioned Harvey Gross dozens of times, hoping to find enemies capable of such an act. Who would want to destroy his casino? But Gross was 76 years old. His memory failed him, names blurred, details slipped away. Meanwhile, the California Department of Transportation provided a lead. The white van with the license plate reported by the Vallejo motel manager was a 1975 Dodge Tradesman. In August 1980, it belonged to 19-year-old Johnny Burgess from Clovis, California. Clovis was 400 kilometers from Stateline, but it was worth checking. Agents found Johnny at home, returning from his job at a roofing company. They asked what he was doing in Nevada and who was with him at the Vallejo motel. Johnny said that on the morning of the 24th of August, he went hiking in the mountains near Placerville, not far from Stateline. He spent the night in the woods, but in the morning his van wouldn't start. According to him, the radio left on had drained the battery. He hitchhiked home and retrieved the van a week later with his brother. He denied being at the Vallejo motel, but noted that the van was unlocked. Someone could have used it. The agents called his story a fabrication, but there was no evidence against Johnny. He was added to the list of suspects, which by then numbered 253 people. By early November 1980, the investigation had become one of the largest in U.S. history. There was no progress. Investigators couldn't even determine where the 450 kilograms of dynamite came from. By the new year, the suspect list shrank, but the case stalled. On the 13th of May 1981, Harveys Casino reopened after repairs. Restoration and a new security system cost $18 million, 6 times the extortionists' demand. Harvey Gross, with a smile, declared, "This is now the safest place in Nevada." The reward for catching the criminal rose to $500,000. The call that changed everything. In June 1981, the FBI received a call that turned the investigation upside down. The caller was 23-year-old Danny DiPieri. His words were concise. "Forget about Johnny Burgess from Clovis. Look at his father." Johnny's father was 59-year-old John Burgess, known to all as Big John. His life was full of mysteries and contradictions. He had spent 6 years in a Soviet prison logging in Siberia. But that was only part of his story. Who was he? Where did he gain the knowledge to build such a bomb? And why did he do it? János Burgess, as he was named at birth, was born in 1922 in the Hungarian town of Jászberény. His father was a drunkard who often beat his son. János ran away from home until at 15, he left for good. In Budapest, a butcher's family took him in. He helped in the shop and at 18, enlisted in the army. In 1941, Hungary entered World War II on Germany's side. János graduated from the Royal Air Force Academy and piloted a Bf-109 fighter. He boasted of shooting down 13 Allied planes. When Hungary fell under Soviet control, János began working for American military intelligence. In 1948, he was arrested for espionage. The trial lasted 7 minutes. The sentence, 25 years in a Siberian labor camp. János was certain he'd spend his life there. But after 6 years, he and thousands of other war criminals were returned to Hungary. In 1955, he met Elizabeth Newell. They married. Soon after, János took part in an attempted anti-Soviet uprising, but the rebellion was crushed. János and Elizabeth fled to Austria, and in 1957 they arrived in the U.S. as political refugees. In America, János became John Burgess, Big John. With Elizabeth, they settled in California. He worked as a carpenter on a farm, she at a packing plant. Later, John joined a metal fabrication company. Within 5 years, he mastered welding and machining. In 1960, their son Johnny was born, followed by Jimmy 2 years later. In 1964, John invested $500 in a landscaping company. But his business wasn't about flowers or lawns. He cleared land for construction, blasting and demolishing obstacles. Big John worked tirelessly. By 1972, he was a millionaire. His company employed 26 people and had contracts with the California government. He bought 3 Mercedes cars and, after losing his license, his own plane. His aerial stunts terrified everyone. Elizabeth handled the bookkeeping and received a restaurant Villa Basque from her husband. Cracks in the empire. But wealth didn't bring happiness. John and Elizabeth quarreled, drank, and suspected each other of infidelity. Elizabeth sometimes disappeared for days, but John brought her back. With his sons, he was strict to the point of cruelty. Once, seeing 6-year-old Jimmy's disobedience, he knocked out 4 of his teeth. In 1973, Elizabeth filed for divorce. She moved to a trailer behind the house to stay near her sons. John sold his business and retired. Casinos were banned in California, so he began flying to Nevada. In June 1975, Elizabeth vanished. 3 days later, her body was found in a field. The autopsy showed an overdose of alcohol and Valium. Officially, it was an accident, but her friends knew she only drank vodka, while whiskey was found in her stomach. Suspicion fell on John, but there was no proof. After his wife's death, John changed. He cut Elizabeth out of family photos and scattered her ashes in the yard in front of his sons. His spending became reckless, especially at Harveys Casino. He became a VIP guest, receiving free suites. His favorite was room 1017. In 1976, John married an 18-year-old waitress from his restaurant. A year later, they divorced. In 1978, he began dating another waitress, Joan Williams. Joan had 4 children, but they lived with their father. The money dwindled. The restaurant burned down. Police suspected arson, as John had insured it shortly before. But they couldn't prove anything. $300,000 from the insurance were lost at blackjack. To cover debts, John sold Joan's house for a pittance. In the spring of 1979, he was diagnosed with abdominal cancer. But even this didn't stop him. He spent weeks at Harvey's, losing everything. By year's end, he lost his VIP status. When he arrived with a young companion and demanded suite 1017, he was given a tiny room. "I thought you were a big shot," the girl said, disappointed. A plan born of desperation. On the 1st of January 1980, Big John woke up to a new decade. He was nearly 58 years old. Sick, broke, twice divorced, and humiliated, he had nothing left to lose. A plan formed in his mind. John shared the idea with his sons, who were 19 and 18. They didn't take him seriously. But in June, he asked them to help steal dynamite. John, Johnny, and Jimmy went to the Helms Creek power plant construction site in the Sierra Nevada. It was a massive project, an underground reservoir and pumping station beneath a granite mountain. The site required large amounts of dynamite for blasting. At night, they stole 450 kilograms of explosives. 2 weeks later, the bomb began taking shape. John explained the sensors and mechanisms to his sons. The timer could be set to trigger from 45 minutes to 8 days. Of the 28 toggle switches, only 5 were functional. The rest were decoys. Flipping the 5 correct switches disabled the pendulum detonator, allowing the bomb to be moved. Disarming it was still impossible. All summer, John worked on the bomb. His sons, though afraid of their father, helped him. How to smuggle the contraption into the casino. John devised a plan. He acquired clothing resembling the uniforms of Harvey's workers. They decided to cover the bomb with a tarp labeled IBM to make it look like office equipment. No one would suspect a thing. On the 23rd of August, everything was ready. John called his sons to transport the bomb to Stateline. During loading, a cable snapped and the bomb slid, grazing Johnny's leg. Furious, he shouted, "I'm done with this." He drove off in the van. Jimmy looked at his father and said, "If he's out, I'm out too." John had to find new helpers. He remembered Billy Brown, a 59-year-old acquaintance who had worked for him in the landscaping business. John offered Billy $2,000 a day. Stunned, Billy joked, "What, kill someone?" John told him to bring another person. Billy called his son-in-law, 24-year-old Terry Hall. John borrowed his son's white van. He, Billy, and Terry loaded the bomb and headed to Stateline. Early on the 26th of August, they arrived at Harvey's. John decided they needed rest. They drove a few kilometers to the Balajo motel. John gave Terry money for a room. Terry was on probation and couldn't leave California. He registered under the fake name Joey Evats, listing a fictitious address, but he wrote down the van's real license plate. This later led the FBI to Johnny. At 4 in the morning the next day, they returned to the casino. The van wouldn't start. They woke the motel manager but found no jumper cables. They had to call a tow truck. On the way, they stole a license plate from another car and put it on the van. The Harveys parking lot was dark. Billy and Terry changed into work clothes. In plain view of security, they wheeled the bomb into the second-floor room. Removing the tarp, they saw the contraption for the first time. Billy, as John instructed, flipped all the toggle switches except number 23 to the down position. Then they left. On the way back to Clovis, John threw the cart used to move the bomb into a lake. Billy asked why. John replied, "It was a bomb." Billy and Terry froze. They hoped they wouldn't get caught. The ransom fiasco and a new plan. At noon, John returned to Clovis. The bomb had been found, the casino evacuated, and the FBI was on the scene. John turned to his sons again, demanding help with the ransom. They agreed, fearing their father. They brought 2 strobe lights, bags, masks, rifles, and Joan, John's girlfriend. John and Joan drove in her Toyota, Johnny and Jimmy in John's Volvo. At Cameron Park Airport, they left Joan. The plan was complex. John, Johnny, and Jimmy headed to El Dorado National Park, to a clearing 2,000 meters above Lake Tahoe. Johnny was to drop off his father and brother. John and Jimmy, with rifles and a strobe light, waited for the helicopter. Upon hearing it, they would activate the signal for landing. After it landed, they would overpower the pilot. John would seize the helicopter, fly with Jimmy and the money to another clearing where Johnny waited. Jimmy and the money would leave with Johnny, while John flew to Joan at Cameron Park. Then they would all meet in Clovis, and John and Joan would flee to Europe. Everything went wrong. They forgot the battery for the strobe light. An attempt to steal one from a car failed. The owner appeared with a shotgun. At a gas station, the clerk delayed the purchase, demanding the car's make. They ran out of time. The pilot flew by, seeing no signal. Johnny waited 5 hours, then picked up Joan. On the way, Joan crashed the Toyota, injuring her face. She switched to Johnny's car. On the roadside, they found John and Jimmy, without the money. Joan was taken to a hospital in Placerville. The others returned to Clovis. On the way, John called the FBI, instructing them to flip toggle switch number 5. It was a ruse to buy time. The switch was a decoy. On the highway, a policeman stopped them, fining Johnny for speeding. The explosion and the end of hope. Learning that the FBI had detonated the bomb, John shouted, "My life is over!" The investigation gained momentum. Danny DiPieri's call pointed to Big John. It turned out Johnny had told his girlfriend, who told her new boyfriend. That boyfriend, unable to resist the $500,000 reward, informed the FBI. The FBI learned everything about John: his wife's death, the restaurant arson, debts, losses at Harveys. Agents visited him daily. Sometimes he was angry, sometimes friendly, showing them his workshop, but there was no evidence. Then the FBI pressured his sons. Agents followed Johnny and Jimmy, intimidating their friends and family. They installed a recorder on Johnny's phone, checking every call. Johnny once spent a day calling random numbers to annoy the FBI. But the pressure intensified. One day, high on drugs, Johnny saw the devil and an angel in his room. He drove to his father, begging him to flee the country. John refused. He said, "The FBI has nothing. I'll plant another bomb. This time, Gross will pay $5 million. The sons realized their father had lost his mind. In August 1981, they were summoned to the FBI. Johnny was asked where he was on the 26th and 27th of August. Agents showed the speeding ticket, proving he'd lied. Johnny asked to speak with Jimmy. Jimmy broke down in tears and agreed to testify. On the 15th of August, Big John was arrested. 4 of the 6 suspects, including the mastermind, faced trial. The sons received immunity for their testimony. The trial of Big John stretched over 4 years. He fired one lawyer after another until he decided to represent himself. His behavior in court was erratic. The prosecutor downplayed the bomb's complexity, calling it a crude contraption. John, outraged, explained in detail how meticulously he designed each mechanism. In doing so, he admitted to creating the bomb. John claimed he was coerced. Allegedly, criminals he owed money to threatened to kill him if he didn't build the bomb. But the court didn't believe him. His son's testimony was decisive. Jimmy recounted how their father shared the plan at their kitchen table in Clovis. He said he'd lost too much at the casino, Jimmy said, and that he'd get $3 million with the bomb. At first, Jimmy thought his father was joking. Joan Williams was also sentenced to 7 years, but her conviction was later overturned on appeal. Johnny and Jimmy, testifying against their father, received full immunity. They didn't spend a day behind bars. On the 27th of August, 1996, Big John died in prison from cancer. He was 74 years old. His death closed the main chapter of this story, but questions lingered. How could one man create such a complex bomb? And why did his plan fail so spectacularly? Life after the explosion. Clovis tried to forget Big John, but his shadow lingered over the town. The younger son, Jimmy Burgess, stayed in Clovis. He settled down, married, and had 3 children. Opening a welding and metalwork shop, he found his place. On weekends, Jimmy coached a children's soccer team. "I'm glad no one was hurt," he said years later. "It all ended well for everyone. Harveys was rebuilt, the villain was locked up, and I got more from life than I could have dreamed." The older son, Johnny, fared worse. His name, identical to his father's, became a curse. Soon he opened a shop making surfboards, but his temper and drinking let him down. Short jail terms became routine. In 1988, after a series of accidents, he was sentenced to a year in Ventura County Jail. In prison, Johnny wrote a book about the explosion. He embellished the story, altering some details. A year later, publishers reported not a single copy sold. The book remained as unwanted as many of Johnny's dreams. Stateline after the catastrophe. The explosion at Harveys changed Stateline. The town, thriving on tourists and gambling, became a pilgrimage site for the curious. People came to see the hole in the building, taking photos amid the ruins. Neighboring casinos profited from the tragedy, selling souvenirs with the phrase "I got blown up at Harveys." Harvey Gross, despite his stubbornness, didn't give up. He invested millions in restoration. The casino became a symbol of resilience. But security now checked every crate entering the building. The fear of another bomb lingered. The FBI continued the investigation even after the conviction. Agents searched for any accomplices Big John might have had. Rumors circulated that he planned another explosion, but no trace of a second bomb was found. The bomb on wheels case was officially closed in 1985. The dynamite mystery. One mystery remained unsolved. Where did Big John get 450 kilograms of dynamite? The theft from the Helms Creek construction site seemed too bold. The site had tight security, with explosives kept under lock and key. How could 3 men carry out half a ton without leaving a trace? Investigators questioned construction workers. Some mentioned missing materials months before the explosion, but no one linked it to Burgess. John was an experienced blaster. His landscaping business often used dynamite to clear land. Perhaps he had accumulated a stockpile over the years. But the FBI found no definitive answer. In Clovis, rumors swirled that John had ties to underground dealers. His past in military intelligence and contacts in Hungary fueled speculation about shadowy channels. But these were just rumors. Without evidence, the FBI left this part of the case unresolved. The shadow of a Soviet past. Big John's time in the Soviet Union added mystique to the story. 6 years in a Siberian camp hardened him. He told his sons how he survived in the taiga, working on logging crews. But he never spoke of his espionage. His arrest in 1948 was swift. Soviet police caught him with documents he was passing to the Americans. In the camp, John learned patience and cunning. He befriended other prisoners and learned Russian. His stories of Siberia were vivid. Freezing nights, meager food, guards with rifles. But he never explained how he was released. His freedom in 1954 seemed a miracle. The FBI suspected his Soviet past might have influenced his plan. Some agents believed he used knowledge gained in the camp. The bomb's mechanisms resembled military devices, the pendulum detonator, pressure sensors, but no links to foreign agents were found. John acted alone, driven by personal vengeance and desperation. Harvey Gross and his victory. Harvey Gross became a hero in Stateline. His refusal to pay the ransom made him a legend. "I won't give those bandits a dime," he repeated to reporters. But behind the scenes, he struggled. The explosion destroyed part of his life. Rebuilding the casino cost not just money but nerves. Gross died in 1983 before the trial ended. He was 79 years old. His casino continued to thrive. The new generation of owners strengthened security measures. Harvey's became a symbol not only of gambling, but of unyielding will. But Gross never learned the full truth. Big John was his regular customer. He lost millions at his casino. The explosion was revenge for humiliation, for losing his VIP status. Gross, unknowingly, was the catalyst for this tragedy. Joan and her new life. Joan Williams, Big John's girlfriend, was freed after her appeal. Her role in the case was minimal. She didn't know about the bomb until the last moment. John used her car and tasked her with waiting at the airport. But the crash and injuries left their mark. Joan returned to Clovis but couldn't find work. Rumors of her connection to Burgess scared people away. She sold what little she had and moved to Oregon. There, she opened a small flower shop. Joan avoided talking about the past. "I was young and foolish," she told friends. "John promised me a new life, and I believed him." Her children living with their father rarely contacted her, but Joan found peace. She attended church and taught children at Sunday school. By 1990, she married a widower who owned a local bakery. Her life finally became calm. Billy got a job as a mechanic in a small auto shop. He worked silently, avoiding talk of the past. The only person who supported him was his son, living in Fresno. Billy visited him on weekends, bringing toys and telling fishing stories, but he never mentioned the bomb. "I made a mistake," he once told his son, "and I paid for it." Terry Hall, on the other hand, couldn't settle down. Young and impulsive, he blamed Big John for everything. "He tricked me," Terry complained to friends. "Said it was just a job." After prison, he moved to Las Vegas, hoping for a fresh start. He worked as a guard in a small casino, but his criminal record hindered him. Clients recognized him whispering behind his back. In 1990, Terry got into trouble. He was arrested for a bar fight. His lawyer convinced the court it was self-defense, but his reputation was ruined. He moved to Arizona, working construction. Terry avoided casinos and talk of Stateline. His life became dull, but he was glad to be free. The FBI and lessons from Stateline. The bomb on wheels case was a turning point for the FBI. The investigation, costing millions, exposed weaknesses in the system. Agents weren't prepared for such a complex bomb. The technology of the time lagged behind Big John's ingenuity. After the explosion, the FBI revised its approach to bomb threats. Technicians were trained to handle homemade devices. X-ray machines and detectors became mandatory in major casinos. Nevada established a special unit to combat extortion. Joe Yablonsky, head of the FBI in Nevada, retired in 1986. In his memoirs, he dedicated a chapter to the Harveys case. "We underestimated the enemy," he wrote. John Burgess wasn't just a criminal. He was an engineer obsessed with revenge. Yablonsky admitted the explosion could have been prevented had they studied John's past more thoroughly. Agent Joe Cook, the helicopter pilot, stayed with the FBI. He received an award for bravery but rarely spoke of the case. "I waited for a signal that never came," he recalled. "It was the longest flight of my life." Cook became an instructor, teaching young agents negotiation tactics with extortionists. The legend of Big John. By the early 90s, Big John's story had grown into myth. In Clovis, people said he hid a second bomb somewhere in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Others claimed he left blueprints that fell into mafia hands. Teenagers in Stateline scared each other with tales of Burgess as ghost wandering near Lake Tahoe. In 1992, a local journalist published a book, Bomb Over Tahoe. It became a bestseller in Nevada. The author claimed John planned a series of explosions, but didn't have time. The FBI debunked these speculations, but the book fueled interest. Tourists began searching for Big John's cache in the mountains. They found nothing but old tin cans. Harveys Casino offered tours of the restored building. Guides shared stories of the bomb, showing photos of the destruction. Visitors listened in awe as they heard how Harvey Gross refused to pay the ransom. "That was true American spirit," one guide said. Clovis and its wounds. Clovis wanted to forget Big John, but it wasn't easy. His workshop on the town's outskirts became a local attraction. After John's arrest, the house was sold, but the new owner kept the shed where the bomb was built. He rented it to tourists as the Burgess Museum. Inside were old tools and photos of John. Visitors left notes. Genius or madman? Locals were unhappy. "We don't want Clovis associated with a bomb," they complained. In 1995, the shed burned down. Police suspected arson but found no culprits. Clovis breathed a sigh of relief. The town yearned for normalcy. John's sons were rarely mentioned in the press. Jimmy avoided journalists, focusing on his family and business. Johnny occasionally gave interviews. In 1993, he told a local paper, "My father was a complex man. He loved us, but his demons were stronger." The interview sparked debate. Some pitied Johnny. Others accused him of complicity. Impact on Nevada. The explosion at Harvey's transformed Nevada's gambling industry. Casinos bolstered security, installing cameras and metal detectors. Owners invested millions in safety. Las Vegas, though not directly involved, adopted these measures. "If it happened in Stateline, it could happen here," owners said. Tourism in Stateline grew. Curiosity drew people to the explosion site. Local bars and restaurants profited from the story. One bar even introduced a Burgess bomb cocktail, a strong drink with a fiery show. Harvey's became the most visited casino in town. Its restoration inspired, but not everyone was pleased. Locals complained about the crowds of gawkers. "We're not a disaster museum," the mayor said. He dreamed of restoring the town's reputation as a quiet resort. By 2000, interest in the bomb began to fade. Stateline returned to normal life. Remembering the victims that weren't remarkably, the explosion claimed no lives. The evacuation was flawless. This became a point of pride for the FBI and local authorities. In 1990, Stateline erected a memorial honoring those who prevented tragedy. The ceremony included bomb technicians, police, and agents. Harvey Gross, though he didn't live to see it, was mentioned in speeches. His stubbornness saved $3 million, but the risk was enormous. Some criticized his decision. "He gambled with people's lives," one journalist wrote. But in Stateline, Gross was a hero. The bomb technicians who worked on the bomb received medals. One of them, Bob Wilson, later said, "We knew we could die, but we did everything to save people." Wilson left the FBI in 1985 and opened a school for bomb technicians. His lessons were based on the Harveys case. The explosion at Harveys was a catalyst for changes in security technology. Before 1980, Nevada casinos relied on basic measures: guards, locks, and simple checks. Big John's bomb showed this wasn't enough. Its complexity, pendulum detonator, pressure sensors, spring-loaded screws, caught the FBI off guard. The technology of the time couldn't handle such a device. After the explosion, the FBI and casino owners invested millions in new systems. X-ray scanners capable of penetrating large objects, became mandatory in major venues. Harveys was the first to install such machines. They could detect explosives, wires, and mechanisms inside crates or bags. Guards were trained to operate these devices. Explosives detectors appeared in Nevada by 1983. These devices analyzed air, detecting traces of nitrates and other dynamite components. At Harveys, they were installed at every entrance. Any suspicious item was checked in seconds. Surveillance cameras also evolved. Previously rare and low quality, they were upgraded after the Harveys case. Casinos began using high-resolution systems. Cameras monitored every corner, from parking lots to gaming halls. Recordings were stored for months, allowing incident analysis. In 1985, Harveys introduced one of the first facial recognition systems in the U.S. The FBI developed new protocols for bomb technicians. Burgess's bomb showed that homemade devices could outmatch military ones. Technicians were trained to handle pressure sensors, float mechanisms, and pendulums. By 1984, Nevada established mobile labs. These vans, equipped with X-rays and robots, could neutralize bombs on site. Las Vegas casinos, though unaffected directly, adopted these measures. By 1990, most major venues had bunkers to isolate suspicious objects. If security found something odd, it was placed in a steel container designed to withstand an explosion. This saved lives in the years that followed. The technologies born from the Harveys case spread beyond casinos. Airports, train stations, and malls began using X-ray scanners and detectors. By 2000, they were standard in the U.S. Big John, unwittingly reshaped the nation's approach to security. Danny DiPieri and the Price of Truth. Danny DiPieri, whose call led the FBI to Big John, became an unsung hero of the case. He was 23 when he reported John Burgess's involvement. The $500,000 reward changed his life, but not as he'd hoped. Danny was a Clovis local working at an auto shop. He learned of the bomb from Johnny Burgess's girlfriend, who told her new boyfriend. That boyfriend was Danny. The lure of the reward outweighed his fear. He called the FBI anonymously, but later revealed himself to claim the money. After the trial, Danny received his $500,000. He bought a house, a car, and opened a small bar in Fresno. But wealth brought problems. Friends and relatives begged for money, and rumors of his role made him a target. Some saw him as a traitor for turning in the Burgess family. In 1983, his bar was set on fire. Police found no culprits, but Danny suspected Johnny's friends. He sold the bar and moved to Oklahoma. There, he started anew under a different name. Danny worked as an electrician, married, and had 2 children. He didn't speak of the past. "I did what I had to," he told his wife years later. "But I wish I'd stayed quiet." Danny died in 2005 from a heart attack. He was 47 years old. Stateline's final years. By 2000, Stateline had changed. Tourists rarely mentioned the bomb. Harveys, renamed Harveys Lake Tahoe, thrived. New owners made it a family-friendly hub. Slot machines stood alongside kids' zones and spas. The memorial plaque about the explosion still stood, but few noticed it. Locals preferred to talk about Lake Tahoe's beauty, not the tragedy. "We survived it," the mayor said in 2001. "It's time to move on." Nevada casinos continued to improve security. By 2010, technologies inspired by the Harveys case went global. Bomb disposal robots, thermal imagers, and artificial intelligence were used worldwide. The Stateline explosion, though local, changed security forever. The Burgess family's decline. Big John's sons took different paths. By 2000, Jimmy Burgess was a respected man in Clovis. His workshop flourished, and the soccer team he coached won local tournaments. He rarely spoke of his father, but sometimes admitted, "He taught me to work with my hands. That's the only thing I'm grateful for." Johnny found no peace. His surfboard business in Santa Barbara failed. Cocaine and alcohol consumed him. In 2008, after another arrest, he decided to change. Johnny went through rehab and moved to San Diego. There, he volunteered, helping the homeless. "I lost too much," he said, "but I can still fix something." Joan Williams, Big John's last love, lived quietly in Oregon. Her flower shop became a local gem. She died in 2015, leaving the business to her daughter. At her funeral, the pastor said, "She found the peace she long sought." Billy Brown died in 1999 from lung cancer. His son arranged a modest funeral. Terry Hall vanished in 2003. Neighbors in Arizona said he moved to Mexico. His trail went cold. The final mystery. By 2020, the Harveys case was history. But one question lingered. What drove Big John? Revenge against the casino? Greed? Or a desire to leave a mark? His bomb was an engineering masterpiece. Even FBI technicians admired its genius. But John didn't fully exploit its potential. He could have destroyed all of Stateline but settled for extortion. Perhaps a genius and a madman battled within him. In 2020, a University of Nevada student wrote a thesis on Burgess's bomb. He studied blueprints preserved in FBI archives. It was a work of art, he wrote. John wanted to be remembered. The thesis sparked debate. Some called John a terrorist, others a tragic figure. Harveys Lake Tahoe continued to operate. In 2025, it marked the 45th anniversary of the explosion. The owners held an exhibition about the event. Photos, the extortionist's letters, and a piece of the blasted wall drew thousands of visitors. "We honor the past, but look to the future," the casino director said. Big John's story is one of genius and downfall. He was a man who could have built an empire but destroyed himself. His bomb shook America but brought him no victory. Instead, it changed the world, from casinos to airports, from Nevada to Europe. Stateline, Clovis, the FBI, all bear the scars of that day. Harvey Gross refusing to pay became a symbol of resilience. John's sons, each in their own way, sought redemption. And the technologies born from the explosion save lives today. Big John is gone, but his shadow remains. In the mountains of Tahoe, by the quiet lake, his name is sometimes whispered. Not as a hero or villain, but as a man who challenged fate and lost. As the years passed, the explosion at Harveys Lake Tahoe faded into the backdrop of American history, yet its ripples continued to shape lives, technologies, and culture. The story of Big John Burgess, once a headline-grabbing sensation, settled into a quieter, more reflective legacy. By 2025, 45 years after the bomb shook Stateline, the tale had become a blend of cautionary history, cultural artifact, and a testament to human ambition gone awry. This final chapter closes the book on the Burgess family, the town of Stateline, and the enduring impact of a bomb that never claimed a life but changed the world. The final days of Johnny and Jimmy. Johnny Burgess, the elder son of Big John, spent his later years searching for redemption. After his rehabilitation in 2008, he found purpose in San Diego, volunteering at shelters for the homeless. He worked tirelessly, serving meals and mentoring those struggling with addiction, drawing from his own battles with cocaine and alcohol. In 2012, he married a social worker named Maria, who shared his passion for helping others. They never had children, but their home became a haven for troubled teens seeking guidance. Johnny rarely spoke of his father, but in 2015, he gave a rare interview to a local podcast. "My father was a man of contradictions," he said. "He could build anything, but he broke everything. His family, his life, his dreams." The interview went viral, sparking renewed interest in the Harveys case. Johnny used the attention to raise funds for his shelter, which he named Second Chances. By 2020, the shelter was serving hundreds annually, a small but meaningful legacy born from his troubled past. Johnny's health declined in 2022 due to years of substance abuse. He passed away in 2023 at the age of 63, surrounded by Maria and the teens he'd mentored. His obituary in the San Diego Tribune read, "Johnny Burgess turned his pain into purpose, leaving a legacy of compassion. For many, his redemption was a brighter epilogue than his father's downfall." Jimmy Burgess, the younger son, lived a quieter life in Clovis. His welding shop grew into a small but successful business, employing a dozen workers by 2010. He remained a beloved figure in the community, coaching soccer and volunteering at local schools. Jimmy married his high school sweetheart, Linda, and their 3 children grew up knowing little of their grandfather's infamy. Jimmy made sure of it, keeping old newspaper clippings locked away. In 2018, a documentary crew approached Jimmy for a film about the Harveys bomb. He declined, saying, "My father's story is done. I'm writing my own." Instead, he invited the crew to film his soccer team, showcasing Clovis's spirit. The documentary, Fields of Redemption, won awards for its focus on community healing, with Jimmy as its heart. By 2025, Jimmy, now 63, was semi-retired, spending his days fishing with his grandchildren. He had found peace, a stark contrast to his father's restless end. Stateline's transformation. Stateline, once defined by the bomb, had fully embraced its identity as a serene resort town by 2025. Harvey's Lake Tahoe remained a cornerstone, its sleek, modern design a far cry from the shattered building of 1980. The memorial plaque, once a tourist magnet, was now a subtle reminder, tucked near the casino's entrance. Visitors came for skiing, lake views, and gambling, not tales of destruction. The casino's security systems, born from the bomb's lessons, were now cutting edge. Artificial intelligence monitored cameras, detecting suspicious behavior in real time. Robotic scanners checked deliveries, and every employee was trained in threat detection. Harveys became a model for global resorts, hosting security conferences where experts studied the Burgess case. In 2020, the casino published a book, Fortress of Fun, detailing its journey from disaster to innovation. The book sold modestly but cemented Harveys' reputation as a survivor. The town's residents, tired of the bomb's shadow, focused on the future. In 2015, Stateline launched the Tahoe Harmony Festival, a music and arts event celebrating unity. It drew thousands annually, overshadowing the old "I Got Blown Up at Harveys" t-shirts. The mayor, a descendant of early Stateline settlers, declared in 2025, "We're a town of beauty, not tragedy." The bomb was history, its lessons absorbed into the town's resilience. The cultural footprint. The Harveys bomb left an indelible mark on popular culture. In the 90s, it inspired TV movies and crime dramas, often exaggerating Big John's genius or villainy. A 1995 film, Tahoe Ticking, portrayed him as a rogue genius plotting global chaos, much to the FBI's amusement. More serious works followed, including a 2005 PBS documentary, The Bomb That Shook Tahoe, which won praise for its accuracy. The documentary featured interviews with FBI agents and Stateline locals, though Jimmy and Johnny declined to participate. Books about the case proliferated. Besides the 1992 bestseller Bomb Over Tahoe, a 2010 novel, Steel Heart, reimagined John as a tragic anti-hero seeking justice against greedy casinos. It sparked debate about his motives, with some readers sympathizing with his desperation. In 2022, a true crime podcast, Blast from the Past, dedicated a season to the case, attracting millions of listeners. The podcast explored John's Soviet past, fueling speculation about espionage ties, though no evidence emerged. The bomb also influenced technology and fiction. Video games and movies featured intricate explosive devices, often nodding to Burgess's design. A 2015 game, Crisis Point, included a mission to disarm a Burgess-style bomb, complete with toggle switches and pressure sensors. Game developers consulted FBI archives to ensure authenticity, a testament to the bomb's lasting intrigue. The FBI's lasting lessons for the FBI. The Harveys case remained a cornerstone of training. By 2025, every bomb technician studied the Burgess bomb. Its blueprints, preserved in Quantico, were a masterclass in ingenuity and danger. Instructors used it to teach adaptability, emphasizing that no device was too complex to tackle. A 2010 FBI manual, Countering Improvised Explosives, cited Harveys as a case study, crediting it with modernizing bomb disposal. The case also shaped negotiation tactics. Joe Cook, the helicopter pilot, became a legend in FBI circles. His calm under pressure inspired training scenarios where agents practiced handling erratic extortionists. Cook retired in 2000, but his lectures at Quantico were recorded and used for decades. Stateline taught us to expect the unexpected, he said in a 2005 interview. The FBI's mobile labs, first deployed in 1984, evolved into global standards. By 2025, drones and AI-powered robots handled most bomb disposals, but their origins traced back to Harveys. The case's cost, millions in 1980, paled against the lives saved by these advancements. The enigma of Big John. Big John's true motives remain a subject of debate. Was he a vengeful gambler, a desperate father, or an artist craving recognition? His bomb was a paradox, a weapon of destruction designed to avoid bloodshed. The evacuation ensured no casualties, suggesting John valued life even as he threatened chaos. Some psychologists studying his letters saw a man wrestling with shame and pride, wanting both money and immortality. In 2025, a retired FBI profiler, Dr. Sarah Klein, published Mind of the Bomber, analyzing John's psyche. She argued he was driven by a need to reclaim control after losing his wealth, status, and health. The bomb was his masterpiece, Klein wrote. He wanted Harveys to feel his power just as he felt powerless. Her book reignited interest, with universities hosting seminars on the case's psychological dimensions. John's Soviet past added complexity. His 6 years in Siberia, coupled with his intelligence work, suggested a man shaped by survival and secrecy, yet no evidence linked him to foreign powers. His bomb was personal, not political, a cry from a man who had fallen too far. The final reflection. The story of Big John Burgess is a tapestry of ambition, failure, and unintended consequences. He dreamed of outsmarting a system that had humbled him, but his genius led to his ruin. The bomb, meant to restore his pride, instead birthed technologies that protect millions. From airport scanners to casino cameras, his legacy is woven into modern life, a quiet irony for a man who sought infamy. Stateline and Clovis healed, their scars softened by time. Harvey Gross's defiance, the FBI's resolve, and the Burgess sons' redemption shaped a narrative of resilience. No one died in the explosion, a miracle that tempered the tragedy. Yet the cost was profound. Broken families, shattered dreams, and a town forever marked. As 2025 dawns, Lake Tahoe sparkles under the Sierra Nevada sun. Harvey's hums with laughter and slot machines, it's past a footnote for most. Somewhere in the mountains, the ghost of Big John lingers, not as a specter but as a question. What drives a man to create and destroy? The answer, like the bomb itself, is complex, layered, and forever out of reach. This is the end of the tale. The bomb is silent, the player's gone, but the echoes of their choices resonate. A reminder that even in failure, we shape the world. Hey, if you loved diving into Big John's wild story and the Harveys bomb saga, drop a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to tap the bell icon so you never miss our next awesome tale. Thanks so much to everyone for watching.